There is something remarkable about the way knowledge shapes who we are. We often believe that identity is something we inherit, something tied to our family, our culture, or the place we were born. And while those things certainly play a role, the truth is that identity is not fixed. Identity is formed, shaped, molded, and transformed every single day by what we feed into our minds. The thoughts we carry, the ideas we absorb, the lessons we accept, and the wisdom we cultivate, they all weave together to form the person we are becoming. Knowledge is not simply information. Knowledge is power, and power is the very force that defines how we live, how we think, and how we walk through this world. When you step back and think about it, every transformation you have ever experienced in life began with knowledge. The moment you learned something new, the moment you realized there was a better way, the moment you understood a truth that you didn't know before, you changed. You could never go back to the old version of yourself because knowledge had reshaped the way you thought, and the way you thought reshaped the way you lived. That is why knowledge is so powerful. It doesn't just fill the mind, it redefines the person. You are not what people say you are. You are not what the world labels you as. You are what your mind accepts and believes to be true. And the more you expand your mind, the more you expand your identity. The tragedy is that many people live their entire lives with untapped potential, not because they lack talent, not because they lack opportunity, but because they never educated their minds. They remain trapped in old thinking, carrying hand-me-down beliefs that no longer serve them. They inherit patterns of limitation, and because they never challenge those patterns, their identity becomes a reflection of someone else's thinking. But when you dare to educate your mind, when you dare to step into knowledge, you reclaim the power to shape yourself. You are no longer defined by where you started. You are defined by what you choose to learn, absorb, and live out. Think about the greatest people in history, the ones who left behind a legacy of impact. What separated them was not luck. It was not even resources. It was knowledge. They saw something others could not see because their minds were open to a higher truth. They were willing to read, study, question, and seek understanding beyond the surface. They allowed knowledge to refine their vision, and in return, their vision shaped their destiny. Your identity is the same way. The more you learn, the clearer your purpose becomes. The more you educate your mind, the less you settle for mediocrity, because you begin to see yourself as capable of more. Knowledge pulls you out of small thinking and pushes you into possibility thinking. It awakens the part of you that believes you were created for greatness. But knowledge does not come to those who wait idly. It must be sought, it must be pursued, it must be earned. And here is where many people miss it. They mistake information for knowledge. The world is full of information, overflowing with voices, opinions, and noise. But information without reflection, information without wisdom, is shallow. It does not shape the soul. True knowledge comes when you take in truth, meditate on it, and allow it to penetrate the deepest part of your being. It is not about collecting facts. It is about transforming perspective. It is about growing into a person whose very identity reflects the wisdom they have gained. That is why some people with little formal education carry great wisdom. They did not just consume information, they lived what they learned, and it became part of their identity. Every time you educate your mind, you are chiseling away at the old version of yourself and carving out the new. You are writing and rewriting the story of who you are. If your mind is filled with fear, doubt, and limitation, your identity will reflect fear, doubt, and limitation. But if your mind is filled with courage, vision, and truth, your identity will reflect courage, vision, and truth. What you allow into your mind will eventually become the reflection in your life. If you want to elevate your life, you must first elevate your thoughts. If you want to change your identity, you must change the knowledge that feeds it. This is why you must be intentional about what you consume. Not every voice deserves access to your mind. Not every book, not every conversation, not every opinion should find a home in your thoughts. Your mind is the soil, and knowledge is the seed. If you plant weeds, you cannot expect a harvest of greatness. If you plant negativity, you cannot expect a life of joy. If you plant lies, you cannot expect to live in truth. But if you plant wisdom, if you plant knowledge that lifts and empowers, your life will reflect strength, resilience, and clarity. Your identity will be built not on sand, but on a foundation of truth that cannot be shaken. Educating your mind is not just about career growth or academic success, though those things may come. It is about shaping the very essence of who you are. It is about becoming a person who walks into any room with confidence, not because of titles or achievements, but because of the depth of wisdom they carry within. It is about seeing yourself differently, seeing yourself not as limited, not as ordinary, but as capable of extraordinary things, because your mind has been trained to think in extraordinary ways. When you educate your mind, you stop being a prisoner of your past. You stop being confined by old narratives. You step into freedom because knowledge has given you the ability to rewrite the script of your life. And make no mistake, the journey of educating your mind never ends. It is not something you do once, it is a lifelong discipline. Every season of life demands a new depth of knowledge. Every challenge requires new wisdom. Every opportunity requires new understanding. The moment you stop learning is the moment you stop growing. And the moment you stop growing is the moment your identity begins to wither. But when you commit to educating your mind every single day, you will never stop evolving. And as you evolve, so does your life. You become stronger, wiser, and more complete with each passing day. If you want to know who you are becoming, look at what you are learning. If you want to know where your life is headed, look at what you are feeding your mind. Because knowledge is not just shaping your today, it is shaping your tomorrow. It is sculpting your identity and positioning you for the life you are called to live. And this is the beauty of it all. You don't have to be stuck. You don't have to be limited. You don't have to be defined by where you started. You can educate your mind, and in doing so, you can elevate your entire life. Life is full of people searching for transformation, searching for change, searching for that one moment where everything shifts and they finally become the version of themselves they have always dreamed of being. Some look for it in money, some look for it in status, some look for it in relationships, and others look for it in possessions. Yet the truth is, no matter what you chase, no matter what you build, no matter what you collect, real transformation does not begin with what is outside of you. It begins within you. And more specifically, it begins in your mind. Mental growth is not just about having more knowledge, not just about reading more books, not just about gaining information. Mental growth is the very gateway to life transformation because your life can never rise higher than the level of your thoughts. If you want to understand why you are where you are, look at the patterns of your thinking. If you want to understand why some people succeed and others remain stuck, it is not always because of their background, their resources, or their opportunities. It is because of the way they trained their minds. The way you think dictates the choices you make, and the choices you make dictate the life you live. That means transformation is not a matter of chance. It is a matter of mindset. When your mind grows, your life expands. When your thoughts evolve, your reality shifts. When you decide to challenge your patterns, break old limitations, and feed your mind with growth, you step into a process where transformation becomes not only possible, but inevitable. The truth is, most people want a changed life, but resist a changed mind. They want freedom, but cling to old ways of thinking. They want abundance, but carry scarcity in their thoughts. They want love, but think thoughts of rejection. They want courage, but entertain fear day after day, and they wonder why life does not move forward. The reality is, you cannot live a transformed life with an untransformed mind. You cannot embrace new beginnings while carrying old patterns of thought. Mental growth is the price, the key, the very bridge that carries you from where you are to where you want to be. Think of it like this. Your mind is the control center of your destiny. Every action flows from a thought. Every breakthrough begins as an idea. Every failure lingers as a mindset. What you think about yourself, about others, about your possibilities, becomes the lens through which you see the world. And here is the catch. Two people can live in the same environment, face the same challenges, and yet have completely different outcomes, simply because one chose to grow their mind and the other chose to stay the same. Transformation is never about conditions, it is always about perspective. If you want to elevate your life, elevate your mind. When you begin the journey of mental growth, you discover that transformation is not an event, it is a process. It does not happen in a day, it happens daily. Growth happens every time you challenge your thoughts. Growth happens every time you unlearn something toxic and replace it with something true. Growth happens every time you decide to believe in possibility when your circumstances scream impossibility. Growth happens when you decide to guard your mind against negativity, fear, and lies, and instead fill it with wisdom, hope, and strength. This daily practice of mental growth builds into something powerful, something that over time transforms you from the inside out. There is a reason why people who invest in their personal growth, who read, who meditate, who seek wisdom, seem to elevate beyond what others expect of them. They are not necessarily smarter, richer, or luckier. They are intentional about growing their mind. They realize that transformation is not about changing the outer world first. It is about changing the inner world. Once the inner world shifts, the outer world adjusts itself to align with the new version of you. That is why some people wake up one day and seem to suddenly live on a new level. But in truth, it wasn't sudden. It was the result of years of quietly growing their mind, and eventually, life had no choice but to reflect the transformation within. But here is what is remarkable. Mental growth is available to everyone. You don't need to come from privilege. You don't need to have the perfect education. You don't need to have all the right connections. What you need is a decision to stop being comfortable with limited thinking, a decision to stop recycling old fears and excuses, a decision to seek knowledge, to challenge yourself, to stretch your thinking beyond the boundaries that once defined you. Every great transformation starts with a simple decision to grow. And yes, growth is uncomfortable. Transformation requires leaving behind familiar thoughts and entering new territory. It requires admitting that some of the things you believed for years were wrong. It requires facing fears, questioning habits, and letting go of narratives that no longer serve you. Growth is not easy, but it is worth it. Because when your mind grows, you see possibilities that were once invisible. You discover courage you never thought you had. You develop resilience that no storm can destroy. And most importantly, you unlock the ability to live a life that reflects your true potential. Think about this. Everything you want in life is already within your reach, but your current mindset may not yet be able to see it. Opportunities are everywhere, but unless your mind has grown to recognize them, they pass you by. Relationships that could bless your life may stand before you, but unless your mind has grown to value them, you take them for granted. Dreams that seem impossible now are waiting, but unless your mind grows strong enough to believe in them, you never pursue them. This is why mental growth is the gateway. Without it, transformation is blocked. With it, transformation becomes inevitable. Mental growth is also the antidote to stagnation. Many people wake up one day and realize their life looks exactly the same as it did 10 years ago. Same struggles, same patterns, same cycles. They wonder why nothing has changed. The answer is simple. Their mind never grew. They kept repeating old thoughts, so they kept repeating old results. But the moment you choose to grow your mind, even if your environment stays the same, you begin to outgrow your circumstances. You begin to think differently, and as you think differently, you act differently. And as you act differently, your life begins to shift. Growth in the mind always leads to growth in life. When you choose to embark on this journey, you realize that growth is not a destination. You don't get to a point where you say, I've arrived, I know it all. The truth is, the more you grow, the more you realize how much more there is to learn. This humility is what keeps transformation alive. It keeps you from becoming stagnant, keeps you from being arrogant, keeps you hungry for more wisdom, more clarity, more perspective. Those who continue to grow mentally are those who continue to transform. They are never limited by age, by setbacks, or by failures because their minds never stop expanding.